Hi, my name's Jerry Cabazzuto from Soundpath.org, and I am here with Cynthia Mitchell of AffirmLifeDaily.com, as well as Devin Brahja Waldman of BrahjaWaldman.com and BrahjaWaldman.bandcamp.com, which I will plug into our chat. And Devin and I were recently at Decentralized Porcfest. We had recorded some really great conversations that weren't the best quality. And so here we are to sort of do it properly. And also, I want to welcome Cynthia for as a co-host for Soundpath.org. So you'll be seeing a lot more of me and Cynthia working together on interviews and stuff like that. And yeah, welcome, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks, Jerry.
And before I forget, Cynthia, you are also part of the Natural Freedom Summit. You want us to? You are a well connected, well respected person in the natural law community, and there's a reason why people like me and Corey want to work with you. So tell us about
Yeah.
Natural Freedom Summit.
Natural Freedom Summit, and I will say more than any of those things that you said, I feel like I'm just blessed and grateful because I've met people like you, people like Corey, and just it's beyond anything I imagined when I first started this journey into the truth and freedom movement. So I'm really happy to be a part of this Natural Freedom Summit, co-hosting that alongside with Corey. And basically, it's very solutions oriented, and we're gonna feature dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews and speakers and special guests to really talk about where we are, but more importantly, talk about solutions. So there's lots of different perspectives. We're talking about a holistic version of freedom. So we're talking about, health and food and everything that's incorporated into life, but in a free and sovereign way. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. And for folks that want to check out more, naturalfreedomsummit.com as well as bigfootflorida.com/summit. So yay. Awesome. And then Devin, before we go into recapping some of our talks about Decentralized Porkfest, you are not only soundpath.org's former headliner with Apophysis, but you, just performed in New Hampshire for Decentralized Porkfest. How did that go for you?
I enjoyed it. Just to clarify, you don't have an echo when I speak, right?
I don't hear one. Well, a little bit, but it's fine.
No,
We can
okay.
just,
All
yeah.
right. I got it a bit, but I'll power through. Yeah, I loved the experience. Jerry had drove from Florida and picked me up on the way, and we had a great time.
Yeah, and you got to perform with Brendan Daniel at the warehouse.org. Brian Becker has been awesome in welcoming us. And then also folks at the Free State Project were very welcoming, inviting us. Um, it was it was a very great experience, but also, you and I talked a little bit about, navigating that space as natural law activists with people that still have one toe in what one would call minarchy or libertarianism. Like, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, well, I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in the legitimacy of government, so I understand the arguments. I've been around people my whole life that identify as left wing or identify as libertarian, or I've heard all the arguments. Um, and everyone says they're on the right side, pretty much. Leftists say, well, we need the state to protect us from the corporations, from capitalism. We got to have the right people in power. And then on the libertarian side, it's like, well, why are you always advocating for bigger government, more government control, with bigger government budget comes bigger military, comes bigger police force, comes bigger carceral systems. With bigger government comes higher salaries for the politicians, making it a more attractive to profiteering kind of people because you have bigger salaries if you're a politician. With bigger budget comes more border patrol. With bigger state budget, yeah, you get more education return, but then you get more government controlled education, right? And then with you have more healthcare, but you also have more monopolized government healthcare. Though I understand the counter argument that we have monopolized corporate big pharma healthcare or big insurance healthcare. And yes, that's also true, but you really shouldn't be choosing between different forms of monopoly. And this is the anarchist position is whether it's the state monopoly, corporate monopoly, banking monopoly, you're just dealing with a relative few people compared to the masses controlling the terms of reality for everyone else. And so, but I also understand, the thing is, I see how easily we're divided as a world. And I really wish people could hear each other out more because I had an upbringing, both rural, and urban. I could see kind of those divisions, like more urban's the crowd grew up around more left wing. Rural is more get the government out of our hair, leaning towards libertarian, right? So when I go to New Hampshire, I'm very used to um, those points of view. But from the left wing perspective, people often think of like when they hear libertarian, they think of the worst thing imaginable. They think, oh, you're racist, you're a MAGA, you're whatever, you're Malay in Argentina, this nut job who rules over Argentina. Like, you're just selfish, you're self-centered, you don't want there to be any protection in place against capitalism, all this, right? But when you actually talk to people on the ground, there's way more possibility for unity if people could actually just hear each other out. That a lot of people who identify with these labels do want greater liberation, right? So in many ways, the libertarian perspective is that of the original liberal to, you want limited government, a government limited by a constitution that's respected, and then you have less government control over the economy, so you have more laissez-faire free enterprise rather than government regulated trade. You need a license to open a business, and then that's very bureaucratic, and then you're taxed up the wazoo, and that also makes it hard for the mom and pop shops of this world, right? So a lot of people say they want the same thing, but the reason why I never was drawn to minarchism or libertarianism as a political solution is because, or as like a governmental system, is because you're still relying on the benevolence of the ruling class. You're still you're still buying into the legitimacy of authority that, some people have the right to make the law and they have to other people enforce that law in the police and the military, prison guards and whatnot. And then the rest are supposed to normalize this and accept this and obey these arbitrary dictates. And that comes with all kinds of claims of ownership over your body. So, and this is one of the speeches I made at Porcfest, to not set the standard for freedom too low, because even if in New Hampshire people are not paying income tax to the state, they are paying, federal taxes. They're not paying sales tax to New Hampshire. So you do have less of a state budget, which does mean less militarization of the police. It does mean, a shrinking authoritarian state because it doesn't have the budget, to pay all its order followers, right? So I get that, but at the same time, you still pay property taxes. The notion that, the government can just take where the piece of land you live on which really is obviously a claim of ownership over that land and over you. So the U.S. government owns 640 million acres of land outright, and that's called state land, almost a third of the land. But really, it owns 100% of the land when you consider property taxes. It's claiming to own that much, right? So that is a monopoly over all of the land and resources, right? And then you still need government permission to do anything. Open a business, you need daddy government permission slip. You want to travel the earth as an earthling. Well, you have to have the visa, you have to have the passport. We're still living in under these arbitrary constructs of imaginary lines we call borders, comes with that. A lot comes with that, including abduction and caging, called deportation, right? All this shit is just madness, utter madness, and we should be embarrassed as a species to normalize any of this, right? So people, I find, by and large, do set the standard for freedom too low. You still have a governor, etymologically meaning controller. You're still just under this premise of the ruling class issues commands, and then the masses are obliged to obey or else be harmed or else be abducted. You still have laws of what substances you can put in your body, your own body, right? You have all this these permits, licenses, drug laws, borders, taxes, all of it is still in place. It's just less than in some other cases. But why are we choosing between what degree of slavery we want to live under, or do we want to live under corporate enslavement or banking enslavement or government enslavement? Why not just choose between freedom and slavery? And until enough people truly choose freedom, we won't know freedom. So
I love everything you said, and I want to kind of get Cynthia's take on your reactions to what we're talking about, and also ask the question, because Devin and I spoke a little bit about this when we attempted an audio interview with each other, but there seems to be a difference between freedom and liberty. Liberty is something that the government gives you versus freedom, which is something that we just have.
Inherently.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this idea and just all these ideas of minarchy versus anarchy and so on and so forth?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that he stated. And I think about my own personal journey, starting off as, left as a Democrat and then moving more conservative, like, oh no, they're crazy. Let's move over here. Then wait, no, they're crazy too. Let's vote for the independent. Then it'll be better. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait a minute. This whole system is crazy.
yeah.
And then, I started to see that pattern recognition. Like, wait a minute. It doesn't matter who's in the office, the White House, who's in the Congress, who's in whatever position. The same thing keeps happening over and over. They're just switching out characters, switching out players. And I was like, no, this whole thing is a sham. It's a scam. And then by the time I, got to Mark Passio, I was ready for it. I'm like, okay, this is it right here. Natural law. This is the one and only way that we will ever truly experience real freedom in this realm, in this dimension, in this form of being. And there's just no way around it. And he made a really good point. We have that low bar, that low expectation for freedom. It's like if someone comes over my house every Tuesday and Thursday, demands money, or they, punch me in the stomach, and I talk them down to just doing it on Tuesdays. And I'm like, I'm free now. No, I'm not. He's still coming every Tuesday, taking all my money and punching me in the stomach. It just, they give me a little relief, enough relief to tolerate it. And that's all they do. But now they're getting to the point where there's so much, we're in such bad shape with food sovereignty and food access, with, the environment collapsing, with mass surveillance. They're in such an extreme position of power now. Now they don't even have to hide it at all. They don't have to hide anything. They don't have to mask anything. They're doing it right in our faces. They're like, so what's up? What you going to do? What you going to do about it? So it's like on us now. What are we going to do about it? What are we prepared to do to stand in our freedom? What are we prepared to do about this?
And, one reason why I've chosen to work with you both, and specifically you, Cynthia, for as a co host for Soundpath is because, you are very active as a podcaster in your own right with affirmlifedaily.com. And you are also a very talented spoken word artist. Um, and you have a upcoming interview with Leslie Powers. You want to talk about that?
Yes, and we'll be talking about the Cosmic Mother, which is what she talked about as well with the last funnel conference. So I'm very excited about that. We're going to get into that on Thursday at 7. And this is the first time she's been on the podcast, so I'm very eager. She's so wise, and she's so authentic. I'm a really big fan of Leslie and her work, because she does very deep dives, and she has a deep understanding of natural law and psychology. So very excited about that. And also another organization that I just want to mention really quick that I work with is collectivelysustainable.org. And our whole mission with that is food sovereignty, and teaching people how to live in community collectively, because we've been convinced that everything's to be independent. Oh, you got to do it on your own. You got to be this independent, and you don't need nobody. No, we need each other. We're built for community. And that is how we change this whole paradigm, by coming together collectively. So I don't have to grow every single thing that I need to eat, because I'm in a community full of other people that grow other things too. And there's someone that is a seamstress in our community, and someone that's a mechanic. This is how we build the new. And so that's what we focus on with Collectively Sustainable. And that's a very important mindset for people to make this shift, is that we have to start coming together, living collectively, sharing, bartering, gift economies, voluntarism. All these things are going to be necessary for real lasting change. We have to abandon these systems of authority.
Absolutely. And I also want to make sure I plug your podcast, Devin, archivegeneration.com. And, going off of what Cynthia said, there are alternative pathways, parallel system pathways that we can take. But, what are your thoughts on the idea that ultimately natural law, objective morality should be the foundation for any parallel system?
Right. Well, I guess it comes down to this question of whether you think people have the right to rule over other people. And it seems most of human beings fall on the side of yes, they do. And they make up different excuses as to why. But it's very, this is the thing about mind control, is it is hard to see it if you're under it. And authority is a concept many people will defend, but they also define it differently, just like people define freedom differently. And I think it has a lot to do with why we're not free as a species, is because we can't even agree on what that is, what it's not. And authority is the same thing. So when people hear that word, they might jump to its defense, because it's like, well, what about, the authority of a parent? It's like, we're talking about the right to rule over someone, right? Not the right to protect someone. Right. So as a parent, you do have the right to say, no, we can't do this, because these are the consequences if we do. Like, you can't just jump in front of a moving vehicle and expect good results. So that there is a no, that is you protection does come with the right to say no, right? When you protect yourself, that's consent. When you protect someone else, that you are as a guardian, right? As a parent, there are certain things that you might have to inform the child of that maybe they didn't think of, right? So that's very different from the right to rule over a child, right? And this gets to the question of domination. And this is what we're really talking about when we talk about authority. It's this alleged right to dominate. So, a lot of people seem to get it when it comes to other things, like, okay, one race, one color, one skin color, one group of people who are of a certain ethnic background or skin color ruling over another, right? One gender ruling over another, one nationality, one religion ruling over another. And a lot of people, not everyone, unfortunately, but a lot of people can see that for what it is. But when you dress it up with a uniform, when we perform these rituals, like we check some box next to someone's name and call it a ballot, and all of a sudden now this somehow makes it all legitimate, but it's the same behavior of rulership, same behavior of domination. So if you say you must give me 30 or 40 or 50% of your lifelong labor, or I will take your home, I will take you, put you in a cage, I will do violence onto you if you resist, I will freeze your bank account, I will fine and harass you until you pay, and if you don't pay, then I'll abduct you. If one gender does that to another, if one skin color does that to another, right? It's any other context, it should be seen, it should be recognized for what it is, slavery. So why can't we see it for what it is? Well, because this thing called mind control, right? We have been conditioned to believe in this premise of authority, and it's command and obedience. That's what it is. The authority figure commands. It's not a question. It's not a negotiation. It's not a recommendation. It's not a conversation. It's not wisdom, because wisdom is a conversation. You might express wisdom like it is healthy, right, to eat a certain way or not eat a certain way, right? But if you say, if you don't eat a certain way, I'm gonna throw you in a cage, right? That's authority. That's domination. Even if you present it as health, more promoting health, because fewer people are going to eat unhealthy because they'll be threatened with abduction and caging if they eat unhealthy, right? This is what we've normalized. If there are no taxes, people won't share, right? So we promote taxes in the name of sharing, in the name of equality, all these things. It's like, no, what you're subscribing to is a relative small group of people, an oligarchy, having ownership over the labor and extension the bodies of the masses, taking substantial sums of their energy and then having a monopoly over the decision making on all that energy. And that's why, people who oppose genocide fund genocide. That's why people who oppose mass incarceration fund mass incarceration, because it's not voluntary, because it's slavery, it's domination. This is what we're talking about. So if we can't as a species ever like distinguish true freedom from slavery, then we will co-create slavery again and again in all these different forms. We might we might have a revolution against a system and just to install a whole new slave system that's just as bad or even worse, right? Because we still haven't looked within to really analyze what we as individuals are all condoning and what we're co-creating. So natural law is just another way to say no one has the right to enslave another. We all have the right to be free from slavery. And that if we live by that law, which is the true law, then we could co-create freedom. And it is the true law, even if you want to like look at, even if you want to approach it in the most scientific way, right? As far as wanting the data and the evidence and all of that, which is valid. This is cause and effect. You want to co-create reality where some people have the right to own other people, right? What is it going to produce? Well, cycles of abuse, all the things we know as a world, trauma, like chaos, violence, like war, bloodshed, like insane, and all the insane things we see every day. This is the evidence. This is all the historical evidence to show that some people ruling over others produces an unhealthy negative result for our species, and yet we continue to condone it while telling ourselves, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's self-evident. It's self-evident. It shows itself.
And I kind of want to, and I didn't intend on this, but um, there's a sort of micro macro as above so below aspect to this where in family systems with intergenerational trauma with I mean, I'll just say in my example, you know, being Korean American, there's been this long-standing history of slavery with specifically more recently the Japanese over the Korean people for 5,000 years. And, it's really up to the current generation of the day to end these intergenerational cycles of slavery that we impose upon ourselves in the family systems and therefore project out into the macro scale. And again, I wasn't intending on this, but Cynthia, I just want to recognize a recent podcast that you did on your channel about sort of recognizing these intergenerational patterns within your family, and how you've taken a stand against that, and how it's all kind of related to the freedom movement. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Are you talking about the one on domestic violence that I talked about? Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
definitely. And wow, that was really challenging for me. I had never talked about it I mean, I talk about it to people individually, but like in a public forum like that, I had never talked about it. And just to tell the audience a little just overview, I had a sister and a niece who were both murdered by her husband, and he also killed himself. But before he even did that to them, he brutalized another child of his, and that woman, she was able to escape and save her life and her child's life. Barely saved her child's life. Um, but she did. And these are both infants. My niece was only 5 weeks old. Um, so talking about that and then learning as I got old, because this happened when I was 12, and my sister, she was 8. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She was 10 years older than me. So she was 22 when he killed her. Um, but anyway, then as I got older, learning about more about his past and how he had been abused and abused, and I'm sure whoever abused him probably was abused and abused, and just these cycles go on. So many families don't even talk about this stuff because, like, and I'm not, saying anything negative about my parents. This is how they live. This is how they did things. They just didn't talk about things. So after all of this happened, no one was talking about it. Like, you have a family who just went through like a horrific thing, and no one was coming to me like, well, how are you feeling? Or everybody just kind of, went their way, into depression or alcohol or whatever they needed to do. And I just feel like we have to start confronting these things and talking about it. And these are difficult conversations. I know it was a lot of people who even told me, they was like, I tried to tune into the podcast. I could not take it. I couldn't listen. And I get it. I get it. But at the same time, these things are actually happening to people. They're actually happening to our children. They're actually happening to our women. So if we can't even talk about it, we definitely can't stop it. We definitely can't break these chains if we're not talking about it. So, and my daughters were a big inspiration and encouragement to me to help me start talking more about the abuse that I've gone through personally, the things that I've dealt with personally, the things that happened in my family. Like, you got to start talking about this stuff. It's important. Otherwise, it's going to keep going. It's never going to stop.
So much respect. And yeah, just to kind of bring you back in, Devin, you were telling me a little bit about how you work with an organization that installs music studios in prisons, because obviously in the sort of prison industrial complex, there's all kinds of intergenerational patterns in families with that system. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how art can alchemize and build a positive experience from these intergenerational patterns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to tie it into what Cynthia was saying, we obviously as anarchists we have to be very accurate and not just, I mean, whether you want to use that term or people use voluntarist, whatever, but freedom advocate, you know, um, at one point in my life, I put, I think, too much of the blame on the ruling class. Now they have their share of the blame, for sure, and quite a large amount of it, right? But at the same time, regular people do horrible things to other regular people, um, all the time. And this is why we're stuck, also like it's not, and this is also why so many people continue to support evil people is because they have themselves internalized evil. And I know it comes from abuse, which is why, like a lot of it, right? Because if you want to trace how many people are born psychopaths without any capacity for conscience versus how many people are born with a capacity of conscience for conscience but nevertheless turn sociopathic, it's there's way more of the latter than the former, right? So there is, yeah, primary psychopathy we have to look at as a species and what to do and stuff, but so many people are conditioned into psychopathic behavior from their own abuse, right? So if we want to end this cycle of abuse, we have to really truly analyze what we condone, because regular people do horrible things to other people. A lot of people then turn to the state as the protector, right? This is, again, it may not be so much fear of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and the corporate capitalists of the world. It might be turning to the state for fear of your neighbor, right? And in the people you live with or some random person that harms someone, right? So, and this is the truth. The more people rule over others, the more we all descend into tyranny, and the more chaos there is, the more people turn to control. And that's the prison system is built on that fear, right? And I understand the fear. And I understand that some people that I've worked with have done horrible things. Now you also have to like look at the fact that a lot of people that are incarcerated haven't done horrible things too. So this is the arbitrary nature of the legal system where some things are considered criminal and yet they're not even harmful. They're not even, and certainly not even harmful to someone else. Like, you put a substance in your body, you have possession of a substance, and yes, I know that, you know, it does affect other people if you're like, I don't know, like got a meth addiction, and you get, if that could kind of, you could more, maybe it's not, but it's not a guarantee, right? Because you drink alcohol, you're going to get in a bar fight. Because you smoke this crack cocaine, you're going to, I don't know, rob someone. Or you can't, like, I understand there is a correlation of substance abuse with behavior that spirals out of control, but you also have to distinguish the two behaviors, right? So someone puts a substance in their own body, there is no harm done to someone else in that behavior or the possession of it. So I was in jury duty, right? I mean, I was dismissed, but because at some point the judge said, you have to basically stand up now and disqualify yourself if you cannot rule according to the letter of the law. You do not. So if you take moral issue with the law, then leave now, right? And what was the situation? A man was in trial for cannabis possession, and this is in New York City where it's legal to have some amount, but I guess he had more than what daddy government allows. And he also had a firearm in his, like, he had a pistol or whatever, handgun in his glove department. They pulled him over, and that gun wasn't registered with daddy, right? Now, there was no evidence whatsoever presented that he was about to murder someone, had murdered someone, had harmed anyone, anything like that. This is slavery, right? He's about to be incarcerated by jurors, very likely, who already said they would rule according to the letter of the law. Did he break Daddy's law? Yes, he did. Is Daddy's law moral? No, it's not. Can you actually, are you is the decision making based on what is actually harmful and moral? No, it's not. This is the absurdity of the legal system we live in. So a lot of people are incarcerated because of drugs. A lot of people are incarcerated because um, of possession of a gun that they haven't even harmed anyone with, but it's not registered. A lot of people end up in, I work with a lot of younger people who end up in prison because um, they misbehaved at school or whatever, misbehave, right? Because you have compulsory education and you have to sit and do what you're told. Truancy is you can be charged with truancy if you don't attend school. You can only drop out once you're 16. So this is a compulsory model of memorize and repeat. Someone, quote unquote, acts out, doesn't like that, drug them, put them on ADHD pills, whatever. Next thing you know, they're like talking back to the teacher. Next thing you know, maybe fists are thrown because you're enslaving children. So not everyone's just going to be obedient, and so people end up in jail because there's like a whole pipeline from the school system to detention centers, youth detention centers. So the whole, I mean, I just saw the movie. I work in prisons in Alabama, Massachusetts, and Minnesota. We're going to other places as well, but mostly in Alabama. I just saw this movie called The Alabama Solution. If you want a picture, I don't know if either of you've seen it, but if anyone out there wants a picture of what's going on in prisons, like in Alabama and in other places, right? Like this movie gives you a real picture into what it is, because people on the inside obtained contraband phones and documented it themselves and were able to make this movie. It's unreal that they were able to successfully get this out. And there's there's, I mean, prison guards, right? Now, I have also witnessed, right, that I went into this work thinking maybe I would witness even more like directly authoritarian kind of bully behavior from prison guards, where I know that it's always more nuanced than that, because in there are prisons where people become prison guards, right? Not only because they want to subjugate and bully, they're already under this coercive scarcity paradigm monetarily, where it's like, this is the job in the area, and you just get conditioned into normalizing this. But there are prison guards that actually do have compassion for prisoners, even though they're the ones locking them up, and because that's what the orders are. Not, have you verified this person is even a threat to anyone on the outside? Have you verified that this is the proper like methodology for rehabilitation, healing? Nothing. That's not your job. Just lock in, lock out, lunchtime, lock back in, this. But because we build studios, this is against the punitive model, right? Because it's like the premise is you've done something wrong, so you're in jail, so now you need to be punished again and again. So the food's not going to be good, because why should it be good? You need to be punished, right? This is the mindset that a lot of the prison system, the people within the prison system, are operating on. But you also find people who are more lenient, who understand that there could be an opportunity for learning and healing and rehabilitation and people getting their life on track. And they work in the prison system too. Now, I don't agree with those positions of authority, and they're working for the state enforcing this arbitrary law, where a lot of people aren't even, they're locked up as, and then, you get the thing of people being enslaved in terms of 100% of their labor is being taken from them every day in prisons, or working for 25 cents a day. So this is the 13th Amendment. People, the government has the authority to enslave you and steal your labor so long as you're a prisoner. So this is the paradigm we're dealing with. And the idea is, yeah, to answer your question more directly, the idea is like, you know, there is such a thing, even if you have done something that was harmful to someone else, right? There is such a thing as evolving while you're here on Earth, right? Healing, looking within, facing, yeah, I shouldn't have done those things, but also understanding why you were in that situation, what wrong was done to you, all of that. There's mercy to be had. This is the thing of justice. Like it's actually the balance of compassion and mercy with judgment, and sometimes even severity, because some people are truly like just out to rape and murder, right? But what happens when those people are the prison guards, right? As you know, if you look at the movie Alabama Solution, this gives them the license to do that, and the legal protection to do that, all the while getting promoted. It's a very sick world, and it goes all the way to the top. And the biggest gangsters, the biggest criminals are running the whole system. And so we need to understand justice is this balance. So even when, like, probably no one would say they're perfect, right? Probably someone, you could look at something, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that. There are degrees of severity with all that, but there is the opportunity to learn and grow. And so art gives this mode of expression, right? So a lot of people write rhymes, a lot of people make beats, a lot of people have a way of expressing their pain, what they've gone through. Now, I've also run into a thing where some people want to just kind of perpetrate the murder music thing because that's what's selling. And I understand that that's their experience and whatnot, but our organization doesn't really want to um give a platform for that, because we see that as like producing this cycle. And I'm not into censorship or anything like that. I'm just saying, when you're talking about being the biggest, king and gangster, whatever, and like murdering, or stealing, robbing, misogyny, all this shit, like, that is low vibrational. We just have to, like, even if it sounds good, even if so there is a bit of trickiness there, trying to find the right people who want to talk about in their art, like, overcoming and breaking free, and breaking out of cycles. But we have been very lucky to find those people as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
I
I
was just
just
gonna
want
say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
I think it's wonderful what you're doing, Devin. You truly, I mean, both of you, you truly like inspire me. And yeah, I just realized all three of us are artists. We've sort of alchemized, personal experiences or our activism experiences into our art. You guys more so than me these days. But my vision for Soundpath is exactly what you were describing, Devin, is to feature conscious, spiritual but not religious, truth and freedom music. So, we can override that frequency of the satanic music industry. And I also wanted to correct myself, because I want to make clear that I have nothing against Japanese people. I've done a lot of healing around that. I have a friend that's Japanese. So I've moved beyond that divide and conquer. I'll eat ramen and watch anime. So I just want to put that out there. I got nothing against Japanese people. Okay, go ahead, Cynthia.
No, I was I was just going to say, when he was talking about, the healing nature, and it's so cool that he's building the studios in prison, because it is so healing, because that's what got me to write poetry, was what happened to my sister. And like I said, no one was really talking to me, and I wasn't like in therapy or something. So that was my therapy. I started writing poetry, and it helped me so much, because at least I was getting some of it out. I was getting to deal with some of my feelings and things like that. And it just became a passion of mine, from 12 years old on, because it is so healing and so therapeutic. So I think that's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. I mean, I'm constantly feeling this like despair around it because it's obviously our problems are like so massive as a world that it always feels like what a quote unquote drop in a bucket, right? But like I know that enough people doing work centered around like true healing would get the job done if we could have the numbers. So if you can make a difference in a few people's lives, then that's already something, and the more the merrier. But like, but it is discouraging to see just how much control people are under and how much suffering there is, and how much like suffering is perpetrated uh under the banner of legality, when it's just like, you're enslaving people. Like it's so. And also the taxpayer who's funding all of that, right, under the threat of incarceration, right? There's another victimless crime. It's like the crime to dare to share on your own without going through a violent third party. The daring to like, yeah, pool your resources on your own terms away from this coercive monopoly. So yeah, it's just it's a lot. It's a huge uphill battle, but I know there have been people that have come out of our programs and whatnot, or if you want to even call it that, just our workshops and our recording sessions, that like have more hope, because there's just more support. There's people who are looking out for them, or people, because we're also trying to build studios, and started in Alabama specifically building a studio that's also outside the prison. So it's like now people have also somewhere to go and keep it going. Because I mean, I won't go into details, but it's there have been people who've gone out of prison who like if some of these like young people, like no one is safer, right? Because they're locked up, right? They're like, and maybe some people get involved in a gang, right? Just because they don't have a family, right? And then they're like 12, and it's like this network is offering like a family, and then you're an accomplice to something that you just didn't plan or do. It's like there are all these ways where people, really good-hearted, like cool kids, like end up behind bars, and then when they get out, it can be very dangerous. Like it's just like the amount of people shooting and robbing each other in this world, just like for nothing, just for some clout, because this is your gang. It's really like the military, where it's like, these are the orders, you kill, and then if you go against that, you go against the cult, and now you're being judged by your peers and ostracized. So it's like a lot of people become part of something that their own conscience is at odds with, because of fear of their peer group and whatnot. And it's just crazy. That failure of like human society is just never, it's just like, it's so massive. But yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
I am so grateful to you both. I know that we don't have enough in number right now. My hope is to harness this idea from the the rebel variation of the Milgram experiment. For those that are not aware, it's, that we have the standard Milgram experiment where, people they choose to harm a person across a, one-way mirror or whatever, by an authority figure wearing a lab coat. Whereas the rebel variation, by having a whole crowd of participants just witness two rebels saying no to that authority figure in a lab coat, results in 90% of the rest of the participants saying no. And so that's what those are the stats that I'm working off of. Like,
Yeah.
I know I know it's dark. I know it's horrible out there. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to, pretend new age, hey, good vibes only. If maybe we'll manifest it if I just, ignore all the horror. Like, no, there is horror happening. And there are not enough in number of us doing this sort of podcasting and speaking out. And I still think, despite all this, we still have hope. And maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. What do you guys think of this?
No, I'm with you. I still have hope, or I would not keep trying, because, like he was saying, yeah, it might feel like a drop in the bucket, but one drop can turn into 10 to 100 to 1 million to 2 million, and now look, all the buckets are full. So, like you said, we do impact each other, just leading your life a certain way and being that example and speaking out and doing all the kind of work that you do and that he does. I mean, it's so small. It seems so small when you look at it, it's like, oh, this doesn't matter. But I think it all matters. Everything we do matters. And I'm still hopeful. Yeah, it was going to be tough. I'm not, La La Land is going to be extremely tough, but I am still hopeful. And I think we can turn this ship around.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think the same way. And I guess on the day to day, you're gonna see peaks and valleys of what hope you might feel, right? But
Yes.
it
Yes.
doesn't it doesn't like go away just because these moments where you recognize how tall a mountain, so to speak, we're trying to climb. Like it's like, wow, we long ways to go, but it's what else to try to work for? Like just submit to this kind of these miserable conditions of coexistence when I do know that many people have that capacity for care and conscience to begin with. So some people, whatever, it might have been conditioned out of them. Some people, you could get into theories of, I don't know, reincarnation or what people are born with to start with. I don't know, but a lot of people do have that capacity, but it has to be nourished. That speaking out is so important for that reason, obviously, which people in our world understand that, like there's so much power just in calling attention to these dynamics and helping people connect dots if they haven't already, and so much can happen through that as well.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to recognize that we have a cross watcher in the audience from my friend Rob Khalil's channel, Typical Skeptic. I've been trying to basically network this idea of natural law across other communities because whatever avenue people arrive, I arrived to natural law by way of, ET research and satanic ritual abuse. Others may do it through the study of the prison industrial complex. Others might do it through, seeing through the left right, two sides of the same coin political divide, and conquer strategy, whatever sort of, conscious music. There's so many avenues to get to this idea that, there are objectively moral idea, harm being done in our realm, and it's up to those that stand by these principles to say no to man-made authority, which some may argue may be influenced by off-world influence. But regardless of that debate, it doesn't matter. The result is the same. What are your guys' thoughts on this idea of cross-community connections?
Yeah, again, I would say that I've often lamented how divided people are, in spite of oftentimes at least saying they want the same thing. So I do see the possibility of unity. Um, and I definitely, agree with your approach of reaching out to various communities who might in some way, shape, or form be discussing or researching corruption in our world. And there's if you have any care for justice, then really what is keeping you, what is not you but any given person, if someone does have care for justice, on what basis can they defend um some people's right to rule over others, right? And it's not just about like the ruling class doing it. Again, it's people doing it in situations of domestic violence. It's people doing it in all kinds of different contexts, but some people ruling over others, and claiming the right to own them and have the right to control their behavior and take from them and all these things. Like, this is the antithesis of justice. So it seems like that simple point could reach a whole lot of different people and across a whole lot of different communities, but people have to take that initiative and hope to unite, rather than just say, oh, I don't even want to unite with you because I like being your enemy, or I don't even want to find myself agreeing with you because then I'd be judged for agreeing with the other side. And I don't, it seems like people are more comfortable being divided and conquered, even though they know divide and conquer is real, because that way you don't have to do that difficult work of really bridging these gaps. And so I'm with you on the pursuit of unity for sure.
Yeah, and and it looks like Cynthia had some sort of technical difficulty, so she's not able to join us. But if she's able to in the next few minutes, since I know, attention spans are low these days. So I try to, generally aim for an hour or so of content. And that's basically, looking at the bigger picture, right? We have the attention span issue of most audiences. We have the algorithm traps that people are caught up in with the communities that, when they log into their whatever, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, they get caught in these algorithms. How do we infiltrate these algorithms? It's through cross community connection. So I will shake hands with ufologists, Bigfooters, regenerative farm people. Who else? Even if libertarians don't see it all the way, hopefully I can have a talk with them to get them all the way. I'll shake hands with moral Christians. I'll shake hands. I mean, we have to start somewhere. That's kind of where I'm at. Like we may not see exactly eye to eye on stuff, but can we all agree objectively, morally, like this world's fucked and we need to change it?
Yeah, and when we were in New Hampshire, I gave a couple talks, right? Thanks to you, Jerry, and no one came up to me and said they disagree with anything. No one, like, if anything, people either they said, good, yeah, I'm glad you said what you said, or I already kind of agree, but I'm glad you said it, but it wasn't, no one seemed very shocked or surprised to talk about, tyranny, the tyranny of rulership. But I also walk away from that experience wondering, are we fully on the same page then, if you still believe in the legitimacy of government, but government under the limited by this or limited by that, um because still, having any governor at all, right, you're forced to fund their salary under the threat of incarceration, which is, it's getting, if that were happening between any two people in a household, it was like, well, that's abuse, right? Someone's extorting the other and threatening to abduct them and can put them in a cage and keep them confined there because they won't give them their labor, right? So I sometimes like, but I also have the experience, talking to more left-wing crowds where it feels like, okay, we do agree, but then I'll see something they post or like or on social media or something. I'm like, no, but you still are buying into this thing of some people ruling over others. And so I often have this experience where I walk away, it's like, okay, so we do agree, right? Or do we or not? Like, it feels good, the vibe's good, no one's saying they disagree. But then have you truly internalized this, like, this this truth that no one has this right to dominate another? Like, have you really, like, processed that, and are your words and actions now fully aligned to it? And I have moments of hope where I feel like the point has gone across and it's understood, and then and then moments of despair where it's like, wait a second, so you just don't get it still. So I don't know how where everyone's at in New Hampshire that we met, but I do know that we had great conversations. We had a great time. There was a great vibe. People were generous and thoughtful and helpful, and um, it was it was good to find out about the Free State project that some of the folks there have going on, and the concept around kind of acquiring more and more independence away from the U.S. government and the system at large. It was just good to see that in action, and meet some of the folks, and become friends and network with people. So I didn't feel like it. I feel like this is the anti-divide and conquer work that we need to do. And you're reaching out to a lot of different communities, and I think that's the way. Speaking online, you're gonna social media or otherwise, if you can get people to a website or whatever, or if you can, your video can be picked by the algorithm to be seen or whatever it is. Like, you're gonna reach people who do not, you know, agree with each other, and but maybe there is some unifying principle in the message that has the best chance to unite people. If the way I see it, if we can't agree on the fact that no one has the right to enslave another, then we just, like, I guess at that point, we just are knowingly, deliberately choosing slavery. And but I think a lot of that choice is um non-purposeful. So that's where the silver lining is for me. I know a lot of people are led into choosing some form of slavery or another, not because they're really deliberately doing it, but because they haven't quite understood that's what it is. So yeah, I'm with everything you were saying regarding unity.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick shout out. If there are any video editors in the audience, please email me at freedom@soundpath.org. I have a bunch of things from Confluence that I need to video edit from April. I want to video edit some of the stuff from Decentralized Porcfest this past year. I have a lot of other content that I just need help doing. And, we need an army. We need teams of people supporting this movement. And there can be no movement without volunteers, without funders, without an audience, without investors. I mean, to build community, we need it all. And, I want to, touch on this idea of that I mentioned with the interview that I did with one of the state reps up in New Hampshire. He was arguing for the strategy of incrementalism up there through the Libertarian Party, where they're trying to argue incrementally for more and more freedom within the system. And what folks that are coming from a more anarchist or voluntarist lens need to understand is I also have, I'll just say for myself, I have an incrementalism strategy with them through slowly sharing the idea of freedom versus liberty. I can, hopefully move them into, hey, look at our, we're at 250 years now since the American Revolution. The American revolutionaries, starting in New Hampshire with the Pine Tree Riot, saying no to British colonial rule to take, trees on people's lands. And then, obviously, one could look at, various post-colonial sort of lenses. Well, they took land from the indigenous people, and then, what is property and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And point blank, people were willing to die to say no to authority. Like that happened. Okay. And it happened that, with the Boston Tea Party, just this, small amount of tax created a riot. And that's what in working with people that are, let's say, libertarian, like, if you truly want to see freedom, and if you truly honor the mythology or the archetype of the idea of the American Revolution, why wouldn't you go full towards anarchy? Isn't that the ultimate goal? And if you look at, the writings of Thomas Paine, for example, stuff like that, like, I just feel like there's just a lot of the spirit of the original American Revolution, regardless of whether folks, want to see it from, a Freemason takeover of the Americas, whatever. Again, doesn't matter what parallel system you build, if you lack morality, objective morality as a foundation, no parallel system will work. That's why I'm really trying, through Soundpath, through my natural outlaw activism, to just really ignite the American experiment as it should have been. What are your thoughts on this idea?
Yeah, it's to have, if enough people could really have a coherent philosophy of freedom and act on it and speak on it, and if enough people had already done that, we wouldn't be in this situation as a world. But unfortunately, a lot of people didn't go too far enough, and this is what we're talking about now. Like you don't you don't submit to any form of slavery at all, or else you're gonna end up with it. Like, so you like, this is the responsibility of coexistence that is, it could be seen as troublesome, because you can't just allow authority figures to take care of everything for us. Like, we coexistence comes with this responsibility of what we do with our lives and what our actions lead up or add up to. So, like, when it comes to the American Revolution, we can honor that rebellion from the British Crown, right? Which helped instigate a lot of other rebellions from the British Crown and from monarchy in general, right? So, and it wasn't the first rebellion against monarchy, but it is one of the significant ones in human history, and all of them count for something. Like, you don't have the right to be our king, period. That is it. That is delusional. It's dog. It's evil. It's sick. It's totally weird that that was ever normalized, that someone has the right to be the king, and then the masses must obey the dictates of this king or this monarch in general, be it a king or a queen. Like, it's a very sick worldview. Um, and so, yeah, the American Revolution is an example of that. And if enough people alive at that time were to have cared equally about all people's freedom, right? Not just their freedom from the crown, but freedom from chattel slavery, freedom from genocide, freedom from land theft, freedom from westward expansion, freedom from, you know, colonialism, and all this tyrannical evil shit. If enough people just said no to all forms of slavery, then we then we could co-manifest another result, right? But people have picked and choose too much. Like, well, I'm for this slavery, or I'm for this freedom, but not that free. I'm for, or I'm for my freedom, but not their freedom. I'm for, not for my slavery, but for their slavery. I mean, so, and I also think it all gets kind of mixed together in many people's minds, where people might assume that everyone who is born on this continent was, who is of Euro descent, right, was, in favor of, um of chattel slavery and genocide. And that's also not, it's just not reality. Like, whether you're born on stolen land or not doesn't mean you have yourself would condone it, or that your actions resulted in it. Now, if you are, like, benefiting from, like, a moral double standard or caste system or privilege, right, and just, like, happily accept all those, like, perks from the system, and then don't even, like, engage with, the suffering of others, even if you haven't directly caused it, like, that is another form of complicity. I get that, but, like, there have always people who who there have always been people who, cared about the suffering of others and not just themselves. But unfortunately, there's just not been that critical mass, right? So, and I see it today, even people who would, yeah, obviously, like, the founding fathers of the US, like they're men of extreme contradiction, many of them being slave owners themselves while talking about freedom. So it's not about those figures so much as it is about the principle of what freedom is truly. And if enough people just were to understand and choose true freedom, then we could co-create it.
Absolutely. And sort of in closing, I think that the more we speak out, the more that we build these cross community connections so that we can essentially we've been stalled in a recruiting phase. Essentially, we're trying to recruit people to this cause of freedom through changing mindsets, one at a time. And in order to be more efficient with that, we do need to go into other communities with this message. But once we do gather a certain critical mass of speakers, of podcasters, and teams of people supporting such figures, we can then truly have, and going back to our decentralized Porcfest experience, I was telling people after the uh, rebellion against the British Crown never really ended. If you look at the
Right.
Rothschild family and the banking cartels and the Federal Reserve, and how, people are like, "Oh, I'm against, the war in Israel here, and I'm an American citizen." Well, guess what? All your taxpayer money is going directly towards that genocide, and so we are complicit through these. We're all in a gigantic satanic ritual, this ultimatum, and we all can take a stand in micro and macro ways. Micro being, saying no to taxation, working outside that system. Macro, building cross community connections, podcasting, making art, building, studios and prisons, like as you're doing, like stuff like that, like there are, in micro level, healing intergenerational trauma, doing the shadow work, not taking on projections and not projecting onto others. All of this is part of that recruitment experience. What are your thoughts?
I mean, totally, that numbers are needed. There's just no way around it. Like this, that's part of the mathematics of human coexistence, that whatever all of our behavior adds up to overall will be the overall result. There'll still be, you know, there'll still be love, there'll still be interpersonal freedom experience, there'll still be joy, there'll still be good things and goodwill exchange. But overall, the systems we live under will be unjust. Overall, there will be, people enslaved in all these different kinds of ways. Prison labor, forced labor camps in a third of the world's countries, right? Like um sweatshop labor, like, then the how, yeah, like the banking system, like you were talking about, like printing money from nothing, so having a total abundance of being able to create money without the need for like working for that money yourself, but just creating it from nothing, then charging the taxpayer to print it, right? So like central banks, obviously this is what you were referring to with the Federal Reserve System, and yes, the Rothschild banking dynasty goes back to England. So when the Rothschild family, Rockefeller family, when Nelson Aldrich, when J.P. Morgan, when all these like banksters sat down and created, and literally at Jekyll Island did like sit around and formulate the Federal Reserve System, that was um, the old world, or the quote unquote the European banking dynasties retaking the Americas, or in that instance the U.S., right? Back under their fold, controlling the monetary system through the Federal Reserve. So making money from nothing, loaning it to governments, then the government's taxing the people um, to pay back that loan, but never actually paying off the principal because their budgets are so bloated, and so they're borrowing billions at a time. And you, even as much as they tax people, it wouldn't be enough to pay all of the debt, all of their budget, right? So they just service the debt every year by paying interest on it. But that alone is like 10 to 15 trillion globally. Every year, taxpayers are paying like between 10 to 15 trillion just to pay interest on the debt that was created by central banks loaning to governments. And literally they're making it from nothing. So that money, and so now, and then that creates inflation, which devalues the currency, which means devalues people's time and their labor. It's just such an epic scam, and so that's one of the most extreme, one of the most like normalized and disguised forms of slavery that exists now, just how the monetary system works. And of course those banking monopolies then invest in corporate monopoly, invest in war, and just like governments, they steal and then they invest in creating the world as we know it, which is like a world of perpetual war and mass surveillance and mass incarceration, these kinds of things. So there have been various elaborate ways for the ruling class to disguise their rulership, normalize their rulership. But what always comes back to is a relative few people controlling the conditions of reality for the masses at large.
Oh, I just realized I was muted. Well said. Any sort of last thoughts, Devin, before we close? I just want to thank you, and thanks Cynthia, who was able to join us in the beginning. Looks like her phone died during the broadcast, but yeah, just really grateful for the music that you make, for the podcasting that you do, for the music studios you build in prisons and outside of prisons, and you're a true freedom fighter, and I'm honored to know you.
Same. Thanks so much for having us on and doing what you do.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.